Beloved chosen one, stop scrolling. Heaven itself just paused your timeline. This moment is not an accident, not a coincidence, not a random video you happen to stumble upon. This is a divine interruption. Everything around you has been divinely orchestrated so that you would hear this message right now, because tomorrow will be too late. You have been walking through days that felt like darkness, through nights that stretched longer than your strength. But heaven says this is not the end. You are not lost. You are being located. The light of God has found you in the noise, in the confusion, in the endless cycle of distraction, and whispers directly into your spirit, wake up. Chosen one, your time has come. There has been a war for your attention. Every notification, every voice, every temptation fighting for a moment of your focus. But the Spirit of the living God breaks through it all, commanding stillness, commanding silence, commanding surrender. Because when God calls your name, even time must stop to listen. You were never designed to blend in. You carry something sacred inside of you, something the world could not define, something darkness could not destroy. That's why life has felt like warfare. You've been targeted not because you are weak, but because you are chosen. Every battle was a confirmation that you are marked for divine purpose. Listen carefully now. You are not being asked to perform, to prove yourself, or to pretend to be perfect. Heaven is not seeking perfection. Heaven is seeking position. God is trying to position you where His glory can be revealed through you. But He cannot pour new oil into a vessel that refuses to open. You've prayed for a sign, this is it. It was proclaimed in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 1, verse 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power, of love, and of a sound mind. You have been paralyzed by hesitation, by the fear of what if I fail. But the word is clear, fear does not come from God. The trembling that tries to keep you still is not humility. It is an attack. You have been called to rise in boldness, to step into the identity that heaven already confirmed. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the dead now lives in you. That means hesitation is a lie. Destiny demands movement. The heavens are shifting. The earth is groaning, and yet God's eye is on you. You are not a background character in someone else's story. You are a chosen vessel in God's unfolding plan. Every delay you faced was divine timing. Every door that closed was protection. Every rejection was redirection. You were being hidden for a holy reason, and now heaven declares it is time. Do not delay this moment. The enemy's favorite weapon is procrastination. He whispers, tomorrow. But the Spirit of God declares now. You cannot keep postponing obedience. You cannot keep negotiating with your calling. Tomorrow is not promised, and disobedience is too expensive. Heaven has invested too much in you to let you drift back into silence. Beloved, look at your life right now, everything you lost, every betrayal, every moment you thought broke you. Those were divine chisels shaping you into a vessel of fire. The pain you endured was not punishment. It was preparation. Because the ones God uses greatly, He breaks deeply. You are standing on the edge of your becoming, and this word is your confirmation. You have a divine appointment with destiny. Angels have been assigned to this moment. Heaven is watching how you respond. Will you scroll away like nothing happened? Or will you acknowledge that this message reached you for a reason? Do not ignore the call. Obedience today will unlock what delay has stolen from you for years. The world around you is loud, but heaven speaks in clarity. Rise. There is no more time to waste. The generation waiting on your obedience cannot afford your hesitation. You are the bridge between what was and what God is about to do. And if you will just say yes, Even now, grace will meet you. Grace will. This is not hype. This is not a coincidence. This is the hand of God reaching into your timeline saying, I choose you. Before this moment ends, lift your spirit and respond. Type in faith below, not for me, but as a prophetic act before heaven. Type 7787 to declare, I hear you, Lord, and I will not delay. Then like, share, and subscribe, not for the algorithm, but to keep yourself connected to every word heaven releases for the chosen ones. Your obedience today will echo through eternity. So breathe, chosen one. Let this word settle deep into your spirit. The shaking you feel is heaven rearranging your path. You are not late. You are right on divine schedule. Every breath you take now carries purpose. Lift your eyes, because the dawn is already breaking over your life. Tomorrow will not find you sleeping. You rise tonight. You were never ordinary, and deep down, you have always known it. Even as a child, you could sense it, the quiet difference that set you apart from others. While others seemed to fit easily into the rhythm of the world, you moved to a divine melody only heaven could compose. You tried to blend in, to silence the pull of your spirit, but it always came back, whispering through the noise, you are chosen for something greater. The world never understood you, did it? The way you saw beyond what others saw, the way your heart ached for things invisible. People mistook your sensitivity for weakness, but God called it discernment. You were never fragile, you were prophetic. You could sense pain others ignored, feel storms before they arrived, and carry compassion that seemed too heavy for your frame. That was not a flaw. It was a fingerprint of heaven upon your soul. Every rejection, every misunderstanding, every door that closed it all carried a divine purpose. You were not being punished. You were being purified. God allowed you to walk through seasons of isolation so that your spirit could mature without contamination. Had you been accepted too soon, you might have forgotten who you truly are. But because you were set apart, you were forced to find your identity in Him alone. The journey you've walked was not meant to destroy you, but to reveal you. Every hidden battle, every quiet cry, every lonely night, it all shaped the vessel heaven needed for this generation. You learned endurance when everything in you wanted to quit. You learned faith when evidence was nowhere to be found. You learned to worship even when your voice trembled. That is the training ground of the chosen. As Jesus Himself declared in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 20, verse 16. So the last will be first, and the first will be last. Heaven's order has always been different from the world's. You were never meant to run in the same lanes as others because your race was divine. What seemed like delay was actually reversal. When others were celebrated, you were hidden. When they were promoted, you were forgotten. But now, the divine order is shifting. Those who waited in obedience are about to step into divine acceleration. You will not need to chase recognition. Heaven is already announcing your arrival. Think about how many times you tried to explain your heart to those who couldn't understand. You poured out your truth, and they stared with empty eyes. That pain, the ache of being unseen, is something God Himself knows well. Even Jesus was misunderstood by those closest to Him. But you, beloved, were chosen to carry a piece of that same rejection, so you could understand His heart more deeply. Your pain connected you to His purpose. When you cried, heaven listened. When you doubted, heaven remained faithful. You have been walking through divine refinement, a process that burned away imitation and left behind authenticity. The gold of your spirit shines brighter now because of the fire. You were not just being prepared for blessings, you were being built to withstand the weight of them. You were never called to be ordinary because ordinary cannot hold the extraordinary presence that rests upon you. Your difference is your distinction. That ache in your spirit, that restlessness, is not something to fix, it's something to follow. It is God stirring you, calling you higher, refusing to let you settle where you do not belong. The pull you feel is destiny tugging at your core, urging you to step into alignment. So yes, others laughed. They questioned your faith, mocked your dreams, said you were unrealistic. But heaven smiled, because God delights in using the unlikely, the overlooked, the underestimated to display His glory. You are the vessel that carries proof that divine purpose cannot be silenced by human opinion. Every time you felt forgotten, you were actually being reserved, like fine wine set aside for its appointed time. You were maturing in silence. God was protecting you from premature exposure, because what He placed inside of you is too precious to waste on places that cannot honor it. The truth is, you are not behind. You are right on divine time. Every delay, every detour, every heartbreak, it synchronized your heart with heaven's rhythm. The waiting season taught you obedience, and obedience opens doors no human can close. Now, the veil of confusion lifts. You begin to see the pattern, how every no was sacred, how every goodbye was guided, how every wilderness was a womb birthing wisdom. You no longer curse what broke you, you bless it, because now you see it was never rejection, it was redirection. So breathe. The weight you carried was never meant to crush you, but to crown you. You are stepping into the reason for your difference, the holy explanation for every unanswered question. And as heaven watches, your name is being whispered in divine chambers. The same God who hid you is now preparing to reveal you. You were never ordinary. You were extraordinary from the start, and heaven is just beginning to show you why. The hidden battle for your destiny has been raging long before you realized it existed. Every strange delay, every invisible resistance, every sudden wave of weariness you couldn't explain, it wasn't random. It was spiritual warfare. You've been feeling pressure not because you are weak, but because you are on the verge of revelation. The closer you move to your breakthrough, the harder the enemy fights to keep you from it. You have been wondering why peace seems to disappear the moment you try to move forward. Why distractions multiply when you decide to pray. Why doubt rises when faith begins to grow. These are not coincidences, they are counterattacks. Hell has studied your rhythm, your patterns, your fears, and it strikes whenever you're about to cross a threshold. But heaven is revealing the strategy so you will not be deceived again. There are moments when you feel an unseen heaviness, a spiritual fatigue that doesn't make sense. It's because you've been carrying a prophetic weight, the kind of calling that terrifies darkness. You are not simply fighting for your peace, you are fighting for your generation. There are chains waiting to be broken through your obedience, and the enemy knows it. That is why he tries to silence your voice before it rises. According to what is revealed in the book of Ephesians, chapter 6, verse 12. For our struggle is not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the powers of this dark world, and against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. The battle is unseen, but it is not unbeatable. You are equipped with divine armor, truth around your waist, righteousness upon your chest, salvation guarding your mind, and faith as your shield. You are not defenseless. You are armed with the word, and when you speak it, all of hell trembles. The enemy doesn't fear your effort, he fears your understanding. Once you realize who you are and what authority you carry, he loses his grip entirely. So, when the attacks intensify, remember they are proof that heaven's plan for you is unfolding. The enemy doesn't attack the empty. He attacks those filled with purpose. Every storm you face confirms your importance in the spiritual realm. You are not being punished. You are being positioned for power. There are forces that tried to make you believe that you are too late, too broken, too unworthy, but they are liars. You were designed to rise after the fall, to rebuild after loss, to speak even when fear tries to choke your voice. The flame inside of you was lit by heaven. No darkness can extinguish it. You have faced warfare disguised as confusion. People have misunderstood you. Relationships have drained you, and circumstances have tested you. But through it all, your spirit has survived. You are still here because heaven refused to let you die in the middle of your mission. The fact that you're reading this now means the enemy's plan failed again. Remember the nights you couldn't sleep because of unseen weight pressing on your chest. The mornings when hope felt far. You didn't imagine those moments. They were evidence that your spirit is valuable. Darkness only presses what carries light. And you, chosen one, carry light that cannot be replicated. The Lord has been training your hands for battle. You've learned to fight with worship instead of words, to overcome with prayer instead of pride. You've learned that silence can be warfare and that surrender is your strongest weapon. Heaven has been sculpting a warrior out of your wounds. Don't be afraid of this season. The storm you're facing is revealing your authority. Every time you choose peace over panic, faith over fear, forgiveness over bitterness, you win a battle that angels celebrate. You may not see the victory yet, but heaven already does. Understand this: the same God who allows warfare also guarantees triumph. The fight was never to destroy you. It was to train you. You are not surviving by accident. You are surviving by design. And every scar you bear will one day become a weapon in your testimony. So stand firm. Keep your spiritual armor on. Your persistence is preaching louder than your pain. The enemy hoped you would give up, but you're still standing, still believing, still declaring truth. That is how heaven knows you're ready for the next level. Now, lift your spirit and declare it boldly in the comments. I stand firm. Write it not as a reaction, but as a declaration of victory. Every word you type echoes through the atmosphere as an act of defiance against darkness. Heaven reads your comment as faith written in digital form, a signal that the battle didn't break you. It built you. You were born for warfare, but you will live in victory. The battle for your destiny has already been won. You're just walking out the manifestation. And even now, light begins to push back every shadow that dared to touch your soul. Every tear has been recorded. Not one of them has fallen unnoticed. You may think heaven has been silent, that your prayers have vanished into the air, but God has been closer than your breath. There is a divine ledger where every sigh, every broken whisper, every unspoken pain has been written down. Nothing you have endured has been wasted. Nothing you've suffered has gone unseen. You remember those nights when you cried without words, when your soul ached too deeply for language. In those moments, the Spirit Himself translated your tears into prayer. Angels stood still. Heaven took note. There are jars in eternity that hold the essence of your sorrow, and they are not symbols of defeat but of devotion. Your tears are proof that your heart still believes even when your mind cannot understand. There were seasons when you asked, God, do you see me? Do you hear me? The answer was yes. He saw, He heard, and He moved. Even when you couldn't feel Him, He was teaching you to walk by faith and not by sight. Faith often begins in silence, where God hides not to punish but to purify. He was shaping your trust, deepening your roots, and preparing you to carry the weight of answered prayers. As the psalmist wrote in the book of Psalms, chapter 56, verse 8, you keep track of all my sorrows. You have collected all my tears in your bottle. You have recorded each one in your book. Every tear became a testimony. Each drop of pain was turned into oil that now carries healing for others. The tears you cried in private are the anointing heaven will use in public. You were not crying alone. You were being refined. The fire of grief became the forge of grace, and through that refining you discovered strength that human words cannot describe. You've learned that pain is not the absence of God. It is often the evidence of His shaping hand. The same fire that purifies gold has purified your soul. You've walked through disappointment, betrayal, heartbreak, and loss. And yet here you stand still believing, still loving, still shining. That is not weakness. That is resurrection power living inside you. God remembers the night you almost gave up. He remembers the prayer you whispered through trembling lips. Lord, please don't let me break. And He didn't. Though everything around you fell apart, something within you refused to die. That something was His Spirit, guarding you when you couldn't guard yourself. You have cried over doors that were never meant to open, over people who were never meant to stay. But God allowed those departures because He knew what you didn't, that some things must leave for you to live. Your tears were the cleansing before the promise. Every loss purified your desire until only what was holy remained. When you look back now, you will begin to understand the hidden mercy behind your pain. The relationships that fell apart were protection from entanglement. The prayers that seemed unanswered were being answered differently, with wisdom and timing beyond your reach. You thought heaven was denying you. Heaven was actually defending you. Your tears have become sacred evidence, evidence that you were never abandoned. God saw them when no one else did. And each one cried in faith has built a foundation that cannot be shaken. You are stronger than you think, wiser than you know, and closer to breakthrough than you realize. Pain is a teacher, and you have graduated its school. You learned compassion where others would have grown bitter. You learned to listen to whispers where others demanded thunder. You learned to trust the unseen when the visible disappeared. That is the mark of someone heaven can trust with greater things. Do not despise your tears. They are liquid prayers. They speak when words fail, and heaven responds to their sound. There is coming a day when those tears will be transformed into laughter. The same places where you wept will become altars of joy. You will see the purpose behind the pain, and you will thank God not just for the blessings, but for the breaking that made room for them. Heaven does not forget. The God who numbers your hairs also counts your tears. Every drop has been gathered in His mercy and sealed with His promise. You were never invisible. You were never forgotten. You were always seen, always loved, always written into the divine story unfolding even now. So let peace settle into your soul. You have wept enough. The season of mourning is shifting into the season of meaning. And soon, you will look back at the nights that almost ended you and whisper, "It was worth it." Because the God who collected your tears is now writing your restoration. The pages that once held your sorrow are turning, and light is breaking through where darkness used to dwell. You will not cry the same tears again. This time, they will be tears of joy. Heaven remembers, and now heaven restores. The enemy's final distraction is never loud, it is gentle, almost comforting. It comes disguised as rest when it's really resignation, as peace when it's actually passivity. You feel it when you start to slow down right before breakthrough, when your heart begins to whisper, maybe this is enough. But deep inside, you know it's not enough. Something divine keeps stirring, keeps pressing, keeps calling you higher. This is the stage where many chosen ones fall asleep, not because they stopped believing, but because the battle exhausted them. The distraction is not sin, it's surrender to weariness. The enemy knows he cannot destroy your destiny, so he tries to delay it until you no longer fight for it. But you, beloved, were never called to faint, you were called to finish. You can feel that tension even now, a quiet fatigue, a whisper that says, maybe it doesn't matter anymore. But heaven leans in close and says, it still matters. You still matter. Every seed you've sown in tears, every prayer you thought vanished into the dark, every act of faith that no one saw at all matters. Nothing done in love is ever lost in the kingdom. The Word of God declares in the book of Galatians chapter 6, verse 9, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. You are closer to your harvest than you've ever been. The field looks empty now, but underneath, roots are growing strong. God has been preparing the soil of your life so that when the season shifts, your blessing will not fade like shallow plants, it will remain. The enemy wants to distract you because he sees what's next. He knows that if you stay the course, heaven's plan will unfold in a way he cannot stop. That's why this season feels so strangely quiet, so heavy. But silence is not absence. It's the sound of God arranging what you prayed for. Beloved, when you feel like quitting, remember even the smallest act of endurance carries eternal weight. Every word of encouragement you share, every prayer you whisper, every time you show up to listen to these messages, it all becomes part of something holy. And if this voice, these words, have ever reached you in your darkest night, consider this: you are part of the reason this light keeps shining. Like a candle that refuses to burn alone, every listener who gives, who shares, who supports becomes another flame in the circle. Think of it this way: when rain falls into the ocean, it may seem lost, but it becomes part of something vast, something that touches shores you'll never see. When you give, whether it's your time, your encouragement, or your support, you're pouring into the ocean of this mission. It's not about money, it's about momentum. It's about keeping the message alive for those still searching for hope. If these words have touched your spirit, let your simple act, your share, your like, your subscription be like releasing a dove into the sky. That dove might carry this message to someone who's crying in silence tonight. When you click share, you are spreading light. When you subscribe, you're building a bridge for future words to find you again. And about giving, don't see it as donation, see it as planting. A tree never demands fruit from its own seed, yet every seed you plant here becomes shade for another soul. If you ever feel led to give, let it be out of joy, never out of pressure. Every drop of kindness, whether a gift, a prayer, or a word, flows into the river that carries hope farther than you'll ever know. This isn't a demand, it's an invitation. The same God who multiplies loaves and fishes still multiplies love today. You are part of that miracle each time you choose to engage, not because you must, but because your heart recognizes something sacred in these words. For those who have already supported, who have liked, shared, subscribed, or quietly sown, thank you. You are the invisible hands that hold this light steady. Heaven sees your heart, and heaven rewards what others may never notice. So if you feel that small divine tug, like share, subscribe, or plant a seed of support, let your action become your yes to light, your silent agreement with heaven that hope will not die on your watch. You are not just hearing this message, you are helping carry it. Together, we're turning whispers into waves that will touch every corner of the earth. And as you finish hearing these words, feel this truth settle gently into your chest: light cannot exist alone. Every flame longs for another to burn beside it. When you share, when you support, when you believe, You are not helping a voice, you are keeping the fire of heaven alive in this generation. So take this moment as sacred. Whisper a quiet thank you to the one who still speaks through the noise. And as you step back into your world, remember you are both the message and the messenger, both the receiver and the reflection. Keep shining, chosen one. The world needs your glow. The voice that stops time is speaking again. You've heard many sounds lately, the noise of the world, the opinions of people, the echoes of your own doubts, but none of them have carried this kind of stillness. When heaven speaks, everything pauses. Even your racing thoughts begin to bow to the weight of his presence. Right now, God is not shouting, he is whispering. And that whisper carries the authority to change everything about your life. You have been asking, Lord, are you still with me? The answer is yes, louder than thunder, gentler than breath. You were never alone, not even when silence surrounded you. The pauses in your life were not abandonment, they were alignment. Heaven has been recalibrating your spirit, preparing you to hear what others cannot. The delay wasn't punishment, it was preparation for revelation. There are moments when time feels suspended, when something deep inside you knows you've stepped into a sacred moment. That's where you are right now. The noise around you fades and the Spirit of God begins to press gently upon your heart. Listen. Don't rush this moment. Eternity is speaking. The Spirit spoke through the prophet Jeremiah, chapter 33, verse 3. Call to me and I will answer you and show you great and mighty things which you do not know. There it is, the divine invitation. God is not just asking for your attention, he's offering revelation. When you call, he answers not always with the sound you expect, but with direction, wisdom, and peace that transcends reason. But for too long, the world has trained you to hear chaos instead of calm. Heaven is untraining your ears, teaching you again to recognize the sacred whisper amidst the storm. The enemy loves noise. He hides behind distraction, behind endless scrolling and hurried days. But when heaven wants to reach you, it silences everything. That sudden stillness that interrupts your routine, it's not emptiness, it's invitation. God is waiting in the quiet, speaking secrets that only stillness can reveal. Beloved, do you remember the moments when your spirit felt a sudden pull, an inner knowing that told you to stop, to breathe, to listen? Those were not random pauses, they were divine meetings. Heaven knows your name and the exact rhythm of your heartbeat. You are seen, known, and deeply understood. There's something holy in this very instant. Heaven leans closer every time your heart opens. The voice that formed the stars now speaks softly to you, reminding you that obedience is not about rules, it's about relationship. You don't have to perform for his approval, you already have his attention. You've been walking through noise for so long that silence feels strange. But God often speaks clearest in stillness because the sacred always enters quietly. When you choose to slow down, to listen, to wait, you step into divine timing. That's when miracles begin to move beneath the surface, unseen but unstoppable. So let the world spin. Let everything rush by for a moment. Heaven has frozen this second for you. Right now, God is whispering destiny into your spirit. He is saying, "Come closer. The window is narrow, but grace is open. Delay no longer. I am calling you by name." This is not coincidence. This is divine orchestration. You could have missed this message, but heaven ensured it would find you. Because something inside you is about to awaken again your confidence, your clarity, your courage. What seemed lost is returning through one holy word at a time. Now, as you feel this moment deepen, I want you to respond not with many words, but with a simple prophetic act. Let heaven see your agreement. Type the number 505 below. It represents grace multiplied, divine transformation in motion. When you comment it, you're not just typing digits, you're marking a covenant moment between your heart and God's voice. Let the silence settle one more time. Hear the sound behind the stillness. It is not emptiness, it is eternity breathing your name. Heaven is speaking and your spirit is finally ready to hear. So as you type 545, do it slowly, intentionally. Let each number be a heartbeat of faith, one for grace received, one for grace renewed, and one for grace released over your future. You're not just commenting, you're prophesying with your fingertips. Heaven sees the motion, reads the meaning, and writes it down as a record of obedience that will echo back blessings in due time. And when you finish, pause for a breath. Feel peace returning like morning light after a long night. The simple act of typing 555 is your silent declaration. I choose to listen. I choose to obey. I choose to walk with heaven's voice guiding my steps. You've just aligned your timeline with divine rhythm, and from here, everything begins to move differently. So write it once more, 555, as a seal upon your spirit. This time, let it mean I am ready. Ready to listen, to move, to trust again. Heaven receives your declaration, and the shift begins the moment your faith meets action. The weight you carry is holy. It has never been random. Never been punishment. What you felt pressing against your chest, what's kept you awake at night, what's caused your spirit to ache, it is sacred weight. Heaven's trust resting upon human shoulders. Many see it as burden, but in the kingdom it is a crown in disguise. God places responsibility only where he sees resilience. You've often wondered why your journey feels heavier than others. Why the battles seem longer, the silence deeper, the lessons harder. It's because the assignment on your life requires depth. The shallow cannot carry divine fire. It leaks through weak foundations. So heaven built you differently, layer upon layer, storm after storm, refining your character until it could sustain the calling. You were chosen not because you were flawless, but because you were faithful. You stayed when others walked away, prayed when others gave up, believed when logic told you not to. Every yes you whispered in the dark became a stone in the foundation of something eternal. You didn't realize it then, but while you were breaking, heaven was building. The truth is, not everyone could carry what you carry. Some would have dropped it at the first sign of resistance, but you, even when trembling, held on. That's what makes you different. That's why the Spirit calls you chosen. The pressure you feel is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that heaven has entrusted you with something weighty, something world-changing. As the prophet Isaiah wrote in the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, verse 3, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, the oil of joy instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. You see now that every burden carried in faith becomes a garment of praise. Every heartbreak turns into oil for the journey. You thought you were being crushed, but you were being anointed. The pain was not evidence of abandonment. It was evidence of preparation. God trusted you enough to let you go through what others couldn't survive. The weight you feel isn't meant to destroy you. It's meant to define you. Just as gold must endure the furnace to reveal its purity, you've been refined by fire. And though you've walked through seasons that almost broke you, they have only proved that you are unbreakable in Him. What once felt like chains has become armor. What once felt like loss has become legacy. Look back for a moment, see how every trial trained your spirit to hear God more clearly. Pain has a way of quieting pride and awakening discernment. You've learned to recognize his whisper in the wind, to sense his movement in moments that others overlook. That awareness is your true inheritance. The weight of destiny often isolates before it elevates. You've walked through rooms full of people and still felt unseen, not because you were forgotten, but because heaven was shielding you. If the world had celebrated you too soon, it would have stolen your strength. So God hid you under the cloak of obscurity until the time was right. That's why loneliness followed you not as punishment, but as protection. You were being trained to carry glory in silence, to host presence without needing applause. The same God who anointed David in a field away from men's eyes has been anointing you in your hidden seasons, and soon, what was private will become public. You may not realize it, but others are watching your endurance. They see your quiet faith, your calm in chaos, your light in darkness. Without knowing it, you are teaching them what divine perseverance looks like. The way you keep walking through uncertainty inspires faith in those who have lost theirs. You are living proof that holiness can dwell in humanity. So do not despise the weight. It is sacred trust, not a curse. God gives heavy mantles to hearts that can handle them. He sees you bending but not breaking, weeping but still walking, trembling but still trusting. That is what heaven celebrates. You may not understand the why right now, but one day you'll look back and realize the pressure shaped the promise. The burden birthed the blessing, and every tear, every sigh, every unseen prayer was part of heaven's architecture forming your destiny. This is why your shoulders feel heavy, because they were built to carry glory. The same presence that once rested on prophets now rests upon you. It is not arrogance to recognize it, it is awareness. You have been chosen to hold the sacred weight that shifts atmospheres. So lift your head, chosen one. The weight is holy. You were never crushed, you were being crowned. And soon, you will see why heaven trusted you with so much. The same weight that once bowed your back will lift your hands in victory. The story that began in struggle will end in glory. What was once a burden will shine as proof you were chosen to carry light through the fire. Heaven's urgent whisper moves like wind through your soul. It doesn't shout, doesn't demand, it trembles softly through the walls of your heart until you can no longer pretend you don't hear. The voice you feel now is not imagination, it's invitation. You've sensed it for weeks, maybe months, that stirring inside you that refuses to let you settle where you no longer belong. The whisper of God is unlike any other sound. It carries both comfort and command, mercy and movement. It says rest, and at the same time rise. It tells you to let go and yet to hold on to faith, to obedience, to the unseen hand guiding you through confusion. Heaven is calling you out of delay because your appointed time is approaching. There comes a point when the still small voice becomes a divine urgency, a holy insistence that can't be ignored. That's what's happening now. The clock of destiny is ticking louder, not as a threat, but as a reminder. Heaven's whisper says, you cannot stay in the same place and expect transformation. The window is open, but not forever. You've been living between two worlds, the comfort of what's familiar and the pull of what's promised. You know the old season has expired, but fear has kept you circling the same patterns, the same thoughts, the same prayers without action. God's whisper is breaking that cycle now. It's not shouting condemnation, it's releasing permission to move, to begin, to obey without needing perfect clarity. Heaven speaks clearly through the words in Deuteronomy, chapter 30, verse 19. I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Now choose life, so that you and your children may live. That choice stands before you again. Not between sin and righteousness, that battle you've already won, but between obedience and delay. Between staying where you've been safe and stepping into what feels uncertain but divine. Heaven's whisper doesn't beg, it beckons. It says, choose life. Choose movement. Choose faith even when you don't yet see the outcome. This whisper isn't ordinary, it's timed. There are seasons where grace flows abundantly, waiting for your yes. When those windows open, hesitation becomes costly. Heaven is merciful but not aimless. You are being summoned to align now, not later. Because later will look different. The river you stand beside today will move on tomorrow. The waters of opportunity do not stay still forever. It is not a threat, it is love's urgency. God loves you too much to let you keep sleeping while your calling withers. You've prayed for a sign, for confirmation, for proof, and here it is. Heaven's whisper growing louder until it becomes a command. Move, begin, act. You've carried dreams that are waiting for your courage. You've prayed for answers that require your obedience. Heaven can only complete what you're willing to start. Sometimes God doesn't open a door because He wants you to build it. And sometimes He doesn't show the whole path because faith was designed to walk in partial light. If you listen closely, the whisper is not saying rush, it's saying respond. There's a difference. Rushing is panic, responding is purpose. You don't have to figure out every detail, you just have to say yes. Heaven will handle the rest. The moment you take the first step, divine order rearranges everything to meet your obedience. You have outgrown some environments, some mindsets, some versions of yourself. That's why staying still now feels suffocating. What once felt safe now feels small because grace has shifted. The whisper of God is not calling you out to harm you. It's calling you out to heal you. He knows that delay will drain you, but obedience will revive you. There's a holy urgency resting upon your life. Not fear, not anxiety, but urgency. You can feel it pressing on your chest, making you restless, stirring your spirit in the middle of ordinary moments. Heaven is saying, this is your moment. Don't ignore it. Every time you've postponed obedience, the weight in your spirit has grown heavier. That's because purpose resists procrastination. You cannot hold destiny and delay in the same hand. One will always push the other away, and heaven is now reaching for your hand, inviting you to release hesitation and grasp faith. You don't need another confirmation, you need courage. The whisper is the sign, the stirring is the signal. Every circumstance around you has been orchestrated to bring you to this edge of decision. You have prayed long enough. Now heaven says move. Let this moment be sacred. The whisper is not ordinary, it's heaven's heartbeat pressed against your ear. Listen until obedience becomes your answer. And when you whisper your quiet yes, heaven will roar in response. The walls you thought were permanent will begin to shift. The path hidden in mist will unfold beneath your feet. One act of obedience will rewrite a lifetime of waiting, because when you move, heaven moves with you. You will look back and realize this was the night heaven called your name louder than fear, and you finally said yes. Your silence feeds the darkness. Every time you hold back what God placed within you, the shadows grow bolder. Every moment you doubt your voice, the enemy celebrates. You were not created to hide your fire. Chosen one, you were born to burn, to illuminate, to speak light into places that forgot the sound of hope. You've spent too long dimming yourself for the comfort of others. You've mistaken humility for hiding, thinking silence was safety. But heaven says, enough. You were never meant to whisper truth in a world shouting lies. You are not too much. You are exactly enough to shift the atmosphere around you. There is power in your words. Creative power, healing power, prophetic power. When you speak what God gives you, angels move. When you remain silent, destinies pause. Your voice carries keys that unlock what others have been praying for. That's why the enemy fights so hard to silence you, because he fears what will happen when you finally speak. As the apostle reminds us in his letter to the Corinthians, the second letter, chapter 4, verse 13. It is written, I believed, therefore I have spoken. Since we have that same spirit of faith, we also believe and therefore speak. Heaven doesn't need perfect speech. It needs willing mouths. The same breath that raised dry bones to life in Ezekiel's valley now lives inside you. Every time you declare God's word, the unseen realm trembles. The silence you've carried was never peace, it was pressure, waiting to be released through faith-filled words. You've been hesitant to speak because of fear. Fear of rejection, fear of misunderstanding, fear of judgment. But remember, this truth never apologizes for shining. When light appears, darkness doesn't negotiate, it disappears. You are not called to convince, you are called to declare. Your job is obedience. The results belong to God. There are people right now praying for a word that lives inside your spirit. Your testimony is someone else's survival guide. Your story is someone's confirmation that God still restores. Don't hide what heaven gave you. When you speak, you lend courage to others who thought their voices didn't matter. You've walked through fire, not for sympathy, but for sound. The pain you endured forged authority in your words. That's why what you say will carry weight. It's been purified in the furnace of experience. Your voice is not empty, it's anointed. Remember, silence is not neutrality, it's agreement. When you stay quiet while lies rule the air, you let darkness believe it's winning. But when you open your mouth with faith, the kingdom of light advances. You don't need a pulpit, your voice is the altar. Your story, the sermon, your breath, the offering. So speak. Speak when you're unsure. Speak when your knees shake. Speak when your voice trembles. Heaven doesn't wait for perfect conditions, it waits for willing hearts. The first sound you release in faith will echo through eternity. And if you think your voice doesn't matter, look at creation. God didn't think the world into existence, He spoke it. Words built the world. Your words will build the future. There's a divine urgency in this hour for the chosen ones to rise, not in noise, but in truth. The world is loud, but light is clear. You've been silent too long, and heaven is ready for your sound. You may feel unqualified, but so did Moses. You may feel afraid, but so did Jeremiah. And yet both of them discovered what you're about to when you open your mouth in obedience. Heaven fills it with power. Now lift your head, breathe deep, and let your spirit answer this call. Write it in the comments as a declaration of awakening. My voice matters. This is not just a sentence, it's a release. It's your agreement with heaven that silence will no longer define you. When you type it, you declare that your words will no longer hide inside your heart, they will travel like light through the dark. So say it. My voice matters. Let heaven record your echo, let earth feel your sound. You are not just one voice in a crowd, you are heaven's sound in human form. When you write, my voice matters, you are not speaking to me, you are speaking to heaven, to the walls that once echoed your silence. Each letter becomes a seed of courage, planted deep in the soil of your soul. From that seed, new confidence will rise, and your voice will no longer shake, it will shine. Type, my voice matters not as repetition, but as resurrection. You are reviving the part of you that once believed staying quiet kept you safe. Heaven calls this your awakening moment. Every time you declare it, fear loses ground, and faith begins to breathe again through the spaces you once filled with doubt, So, once more type "My voice matters." Let your comment become a covenant between your spirit and God's purpose. Heaven reads what you write with the same attention it gives to your prayers. Every word you release online becomes a spark that lights another heart still hiding in the dark. The covenant of fire is awakening inside you. It's not a flame that destroys, it's one that purifies. You've felt it lately, haven't you? That quiet burning in your chest, that holy warmth that flickers when you hear truth. It's heaven's reminder that you were never called to be cold or casual. You were born to burn with divine purpose. This covenant began the moment you said yes to God, whether you realized it or not. It's not made of ink and paper, but of spirit and flame. Every time you obeyed the whisper, every time you chose forgiveness over bitterness, every time you prayed when no one else knew, you were adding wood to this sacred fire. And now, it is beginning to blaze. There is a reason your heart won't let you settle in comfort. Fire does not rest, it refines. You have been chosen to carry this covenant of fire into a world that has grown cold. You don't preach it with words alone, you live it with warmth, compassion, and courage. As written in the book of Romans, chapter 12, verse 11, never be lacking in zeal, but keep your spiritual fervor. Serving the Lord, you are that fervor. You are heaven's reminder that passion is holy. The same fire that Moses saw in the burning bush now burns in your heart, not consuming but calling. It lights up everything around you, quietly, faithfully. And like all sacred flames, it asks only one thing: don't let it go out. But fire doesn't survive on its own. It needs air, it needs movement. That's why what you do next matters. Every act of kindness, every word shared, every connection made, those are the breaths that keep this covenant alive. When you click, like you're not feeding an algorithm, you're fanning the flame. You're saying, yes, I want this fire to spread. When you share, you become the wind that carries light into dark corners where it's most needed. Somewhere, someone will feel your share as a spark that reaches their night. When you subscribe, it's like building a fireplace in your heart, a place where this warmth can return again and again. Because fire doesn't just need to burn once, it needs a home to dwell in. Your subscription is an open door for these words to find you whenever the cold of the world tries to creep in. And then there is giving, not demanded, but invited. If your heart ever feels stirred to donate, think of it not as losing, but as lighting another candle. Each gift becomes oil for the flame, helping this message travel farther, shining into unseen valleys and unseen lives. Giving is not payment, it's participation. It's saying, I believe this light should keep burning. No one is ever required to give. The fire of God is free, it always will be. But sometimes, the purest worship is found in generosity. When you give from love, heaven breathes on what you release and multiplies it beyond imagination. You may never see all the lives it touches, but eternity will remember your flame. Think of this as tending a sacred bonfire together. Each like, each share, each gift, those are sparks rising to heaven. And every spark matters. It's how darkness is pushed back, one small, faithful act of light at a time. When you see these messages, you are not just a viewer. You are part of the flame's journey. You are a carrier of warmth in a cold world, a keeper of divine fire. And when you help it move, when you share it forward, it doesn't just bless others. It rekindles something within you too. You were never meant to stand in the ashes of your past, watching embers fade. You were meant to add wood, to breathe faith, to keep the blaze alive. The covenant of fire is personal, but it's also collective. Heaven's light spreads when hearts unite around hope. So as you listen now, imagine the flame between us. You see it, don't you, small but steady, glowing with a warmth that feels like home. This is that divine fire. If these words have stirred your spirit, fan the flame. Like it, share it, subscribe to keep the light close. Give only if your heart smiles as you do it. Because this is not about obligation, it's about offering. You are offering warmth to a world that's forgotten how to feel. You are helping the message reach the one still trembling in the cold, the one who doesn't yet know that the same flame of God burns for them too. So, beloved flame bearer, keep it burning, carry it forward, pass it on in love. Every spark you release today becomes a sunrise somewhere tomorrow. And as the embers rise, heaven smiles. For the smallest flame given in love becomes a beacon in eternity. The warmth you've helped create tonight will reach hearts you may never meet. Remember, this light never asks permission to shine, and neither should you. Keep the covenant. Keep the fire alive. Divine exposure begins quietly. It doesn't always come with thunder or flashing signs. It often begins with an uneasy feeling, a sudden shift, a sense that things once hidden are being brought to light. You can feel it, can't you? That gentle unraveling of what was false, that peeling away of layers you once thought were truth. Heaven is moving through your life like a refiner's wind, removing the coverings that no longer belong. This exposure is not punishment, it's purification. You asked God for clarity, and He's giving it not by adding more, but by removing what deceived you. It may hurt, it may surprise you, but it is necessary. For light and deception cannot coexist. The same fire that blesses also exposes, because truth is always wrapped in transparency. You may start to notice people stepping away, doors closing unexpectedly, opportunities you thought were divine suddenly losing their shine. Don't panic. Heaven is cleaning your path. What looks like loss is actually protection in motion. God is not taking from you, He's filtering for you. As the prophet Daniel recorded in the book of Daniel chapter 2, verse 22. He reveals deep and hidden things. He knows what lies in darkness, and light dwells with Him. This is what divine exposure looks like. The hidden motives, the unseen traps, the quiet manipulations, they all begin to surface. You may feel disappointment when truth arrives, but remember, this exposure is evidence of God's love, not His absence. When He reveals, it's because He's preparing to rebuild. Sometimes, it's not just others being exposed, it's us. The Holy Spirit doesn't only uncover external deception, He shines light on internal wounds, insecurities, and motives we didn't realize were shaping our actions. That's what makes exposure so uncomfortable. It's easier to see wrong around us than to face it within us. But God loves us enough to confront both. So when the mirror of truth turns toward you, don't hide. Let the light do its work, because where exposure happens, healing follows. What God reveals, He intends to restore. The shame you feel when truth comes to surface isn't your ending, it's your invitation into freedom. You might look around and see relationships fading, habits breaking, thoughts shifting. This isn't chaos, it's order. Heaven is rearranging your environment to match your new identity. The old can't stay where the new is being born. Just as dawn doesn't ask permission to replace the night, truth doesn't ask permission to reveal itself. It simply arrives, and everything changes. In this season, you may find yourself alone again, wondering why certain people you trusted are suddenly distant. Don't chase what God is removing. When someone's purpose in your life is complete, their absence is not rejection, it's release. Divine exposure doesn't just reveal deception, it reveals destination. It shows who can go forward with you and who cannot survive the next level of your calling. God is refining your circle. He's surrounding you with alignment, not applause. This process may look like isolation, but it's actually elevation. The smaller your circle becomes, the stronger your focus will grow. Heaven doesn't need crowds to move, it needs clarity. And as exposure continues, don't forget grace. The same mercy that covered you in your own mistakes must now flow through you toward others. Divine exposure isn't a weapon to shame, it's a revelation to heal. You are being called to see truth and respond in love, not vengeance. Every unveiling has purpose. God doesn't reveal to destroy, He reveals to redeem. When light touches the hidden, it restores order. Darkness cannot argue with illumination, it simply flees. What's being exposed now in your life isn't random. It's everything that could hinder your next assignment. You'll soon look back and understand why certain things had to crumble. The lies that were once comforting were keeping you bound. The people who seemed loyal were draining your spirit. The places that once inspired you had become cages. God is setting you free from every counterfeit connection. Divine exposure is heaven's way of clearing your atmosphere. It makes space for real peace, real joy, real alignment. You won't need to force relationships or fight for validation anymore. The truth will stand on its own. What remains after exposure will be real, and what's real will remain. You are stepping into a season where clarity will replace confusion, discernment will replace distraction, and truth will stand taller than pretense. The light that once frightened you will soon become your greatest friend. You will begin to love honesty, even when it hurts, because you'll recognize it as the hand of God pulling you closer to Himself. So don't fear the exposure. Embrace it. It's proof that heaven is active in your story. Every hidden thing revealed, every false thing removed, every truth uncovered, these are signs that you are moving from survival into sanctification. Let light do what light does shine, and let it shine first within you. Because when you are purified, the world around you will begin to see Christ more clearly through you. Your name is being announced, not by people, not by platforms, but by heaven itself. There is a stirring in the spiritual realm. Your identity, once hidden by hardship, is now being spoken aloud in divine chambers. Angels are carrying your name into rooms you have never entered, placing it before hearts that are prepared to help you step into destiny. You've spent seasons feeling invisible, unseen, overlooked. But heaven has been working behind the scenes. When it looked like nothing was happening, your name was being whispered in places your feet haven't yet walked. Divine recognition is not about fame, it's about function. God reveals your name when it's time for your purpose to be remembered. According to what is written in the book of Esther, chapter 6, verse 10. Then the king said, "Go at once, honor him for everything you have said, for this is what shall be done for the man the king delights to honor. Just like Mordecai was honored at the right time, so will you be." There is divine timing in recognition. It doesn't arrive early, and it never arrives late. Heaven delays public elevation until private endurance has done its work. The silence you've endured was not a rejection, it was a setup. God was ensuring that when your name was called, you would be ready to carry the weight of it. Right now, unseen movements are aligning. People you've never met are being positioned to speak your name in rooms of opportunity, to open doors that your effort alone couldn't unlock. Divine favor travels faster than your footsteps. You may not see the path, but heaven has already written it. When God announces a name, He doesn't need permission, He doesn't wait for consensus. He simply declares, "This is the one." And when He does, no force can silence it. Every time you obeyed in secret, Heaven recorded it. Every act of kindness done without applause, every sacrifice made in silence, it all spoke louder than any platform could. Now those moments are being gathered, forming a testimony that will echo your name beyond your imagination. But hear this: when heaven begins to announce you, humility must remain your foundation. The goal is not to be known by men, it is to be recognized by purpose. God will not raise you so that you may boast, but so that you may bless. The more your name travels, the deeper your roots must grow. Glory cannot rest on pride, it rests on surrender. Your season of anonymity was never wasted. God was writing authenticity into your name. That's why you couldn't rush this moment, it had to mature. Every closed door was developing discernment. Every silence was teaching you to hear heaven before applause. When your name begins to echo, it will not sound like fame, it will sound like fulfillment. You'll realize the announcement is not about visibility, it's about responsibility. The greater the recognition, the greater the reach, and the greater the accountability to carry it with grace. Heaven's timing is perfect. You've been hidden, not forgotten. And now, as divine alignment unfolds, the same God who anointed you in secret is preparing to reveal you in season. The hidden season refined your heart. The revealing season will reflect His glory. Beloved, your name carries weight in heaven. Before it is printed anywhere on earth, it is already engraved in eternity. God doesn't forget His chosen ones. He simply waits for the hour when their readiness meets their purpose. So lift your head, not in pride, but in peace. The silence that once broke you will soon make sense. Your name is not just being spoken, it is being celebrated, remembered, honored. Now, as an act of agreement with heaven's announcement, let your spirit respond. Type the number 888 below. It symbolizes new beginnings and divine alignment, the moment when heaven and earth agree that your time has come. When you comment it, you are not seeking attention. You are acknowledging that your name is written in the Lamb's book of life, and heaven knows you by heart. Your waiting wasn't wasted. Your silence wasn't ignored. The King has called your name. When you type 888, see it as a sacred echo of heaven's decree. Each number carries a layer of meaning, one for the past that has been redeemed, one for the present now unfolding, and one for the future already written by God's hand. You're not just commenting, you're confirming. It's your quiet yes to divine timing. Your acknowledgement that what was hidden is now being honored in light. Type 888 with faith, not fear. Let it be your seal of gratitude, a whisper to heaven saying, I received the new beginning you've prepared for me. Heaven records the faith behind every keystroke, not the motion itself. When you write it, you join a spiritual symphony of chosen ones stepping into destiny together. Your name has been called. Your moment has begun. The test of obedience is rarely loud. It doesn't always arrive with a clear sign or a voice from heaven. It often comes disguised as a small decision, a quiet moment where your heart must choose between comfort and calling. That is where destiny is measured, not in how much you know, but in how much you trust. God's tests are not designed to expose weakness, but to reveal readiness. Every great calling is refined in obedience. You prayed for promotion, for expansion, for breakthrough, but heaven will always test your surrender before it releases increase. Because obedience proves love more deeply than words ever could. You know this feeling well, the tension between what makes sense and what your spirit says. Sometimes God asks you to step before the path appears. Sometimes He asks you to release what you love most so your hands can hold what He prepared next. Obedience is never convenient, but it is always consequential. As it is written in the book of 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 22. To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. This verse isn't a warning, it's an invitation. It reminds you that obedience touches heaven in ways ritual never can. God isn't after your performance, He's after your partnership. He desires a heart that says, "Even if I don't understand, I'll still trust you." That kind of obedience opens doors logic cannot. Every time you said yes through tears, every time you stayed when leaving felt easier, every time you forgave when it hurt, those were holy tests, and you passed more of them than you realize. You've proven again and again that your heart belongs to Him, even when your circumstances tried to break it. The test of obedience often unfolds in silence. Heaven observes quietly to see if your faith remains when applause disappears. When no one sees your sacrifice, when no one affirms your choice, that's when obedience becomes most beautiful. True faith doesn't perform for validation. It moves out of love. Sometimes obedience feels like loss. Abraham understood that when he climbed the mountain with Isaac. Yet on that same mountain, God revealed Himself as provider. It was in the moment of surrender that divine provision appeared. The same pattern still holds true. You will not lose what you surrender to God. You will only find it transformed. There will be times when God asks for what seems unreasonable. He may tell you to forgive the one who wounded you deepest, to bless someone who betrayed you, to step into a task you feel unqualified for. But obedience will always take you to places talent cannot reach. It is the invisible bridge between prayer and promise. You may not always hear clear instructions, but that doesn't mean God is absent. Often, His silence is permission to move. Obedience isn't about waiting for certainty, it's about trusting His consistency. He's never failed you before. He won't start now. When you walk in obedience, peace follows even when clarity doesn't. Peace is heaven's way of confirming that your direction is right. You might still feel fear, but peace will rest underneath it like a river. That's how you'll know you're walking the right path. The storm may rage, but your spirit stays still. And when you falter, when obedience feels too heavy, remember grace stands beside you. God doesn't demand perfection, He desires progression. Every step, even a trembling one, counts in His sight. Heaven celebrates the effort of faith more than the success of performance. Obedience also has a ripple effect. Your faithfulness doesn't just change your life, it alters atmospheres, shifts generations, and inspires others who watch from a distance. You may not realize it, but your private yes is teaching others how to walk with courage. Every unseen act of obedience builds a legacy of light. The test may come again soon, another decision that stretches your heart beyond logic. But this time, you will respond differently. You've grown. You've learned to trust the tone of God's whisper more than the noise of your fear. You've learned that obedience isn't loss, it's alignment. One day, you'll see how every hard yes led you closer to the life heaven intended. You'll look back at the moments that made no sense and realize they were divine choreography. Every step calculated to bring you where you are now. So, when the next test appears, don't hesitate. Trust that every time God tests you, He's also trusting you. He doesn't test those He plans to abandon, He tests those He plans to promote. Obedience will always cost something, but disobedience costs far more. And when you finally understand that, your heart becomes free not from duty, but from doubt. You'll begin to walk not because you must, but because you can. You'll find joy in surrender, peace in uncertainty, and strength in every step of faith. Because every act of obedience draws you closer to the sound of His heart. Mercy steps back. It is one of the most sobering moments in a believer's journey, the moment when heaven, after years of calling, finally grows quiet. It is not anger, not punishment, but divine withdrawal. God never abandons his chosen ones. But there are times when his mercy pauses, waiting for your will to respond. Grace can cover rebellion only so long before love must allow consequences to teach what words could not. This is not about fear, it's about reverence. There are seasons when God's silence is not distance, but discipline and invitation to maturity. When mercy steps back, conviction grows louder. You begin to feel the weight of your decisions, the ache of separation, the hollowness that follows disobedience. It is the Spirit saying, "Return while there is still time." You may recall moments when everything once flowed easily, prayers were clear. Worship felt alive, and favor surrounded you like sunlight. But slowly, the warmth faded. It wasn't punishment, it was warning. Heaven was whispering, "Don't drift too far." Mercy doesn't vanish in anger, it withdraws in sorrow, hoping the absence will awaken longing. As written in the book of Hosea, chapter 5, verse 15. "Then I will return to my place until they admit their guilt and seek my face. In their misery they will earnestly seek me." That is the cry of a loving Father who will not force love. He steps back, not to destroy, but to draw you nearer through longing. When his presence feels distant, it's not because he has left, it's because he's waiting for pursuit. Divine love respects freedom, it waits to be chosen. You see, mercy is not endless permission, it is opportunity. Every sunrise, every breath, every chance to repent is proof that mercy is still active. But when mercy pauses, it means the window of opportunity is narrowing. Not because God desires judgment, but because he knows delay will destroy you faster than disobedience ever could. There is a kind of pain that comes from disconnection, the ache of knowing what the presence of God feels like, and realizing you've wandered from it. That ache is mercy in disguise. It's the Father letting you feel what separation would truly cost, so that you never settle for life outside his light again. You've seen others fall away, haven't you? People who once carried fire but now live in shadows. They didn't lose God in an instant, they simply stopped responding when mercy called. One delay became two became 10, and before they knew it, their hearts grew numb. That numbness is the most dangerous condition of all, not rebellion but indifference. When mercy steps back, the Spirit still speaks but softer, like an echo from a distance. The still small voice becomes almost imperceptible. That's why obedience matters so deeply. Every act of delay makes the next yes harder to say. Heaven's patience is vast, but it's not void of boundaries. You may not realize it, but even now, mercy surrounds you. If you can still feel conviction, still sense the tug of the Spirit, that means grace is not gone. The danger is not in failure, it's in comfort with failure. The moment you stop caring, that's when mercy weeps. And yet, even when mercy steps back, redemption stands ready. God doesn't retreat in revenge. He retreats in hope that you'll miss his nearness enough to return. The longing you feel when you pray and hear nothing is not rejection, it's invitation. It's heaven asking, "Will you come find me again?" And sometimes you need the silence to recognize how precious the sound was. The absence teaches appreciation that abundance never could. When God speaks again, and he will, you will treasure every word, every whisper, every sense of his presence with deeper awe. This is what it means to mature in faith, to recognize that mercy is both gift and responsibility. It's not something to abuse, it's something to honor. Every time you obey quickly, you keep mercy close. Every time you ignore the nudge, you watch it step back one pace further. But even in the withdrawal, hope remains. Because the same God who steps back to teach will run forward to restore the moment you turn. Mercy is not fragile, it's fierce. It waits on the edge of your decisions, ready to flood your life again the moment you repent. You've never fallen too far for mercy to find you. The distance you feel now is not infinite. It's the space between your will and His voice. Close that space, and mercy rushes back like a tide. So if heaven feels silent, if grace seems paused, remember this is not the end of your story. It's the pause before renewal. It's love holding its breath, waiting for your return. Mercy has not abandoned you, it's waiting for your yes. And when you finally whisper that yes, mercy runs faster than your failure. The distance disappears, and presence floods in like sunrise after endless night. Heaven does not remind you of how far you wandered. It rejoices that you've come home. Love wins again. Mercy has stepped forward once more. Rise, crowned warrior. The season of hidden battles is ending, and heaven now reveals what those silent nights were preparing you for. The crown is not made of gold or silver, it's made of endurance, tears, and faith that refused to die. You've worn ashes for too long, and now God trades them for authority. You have been misunderstood, underestimated, and overlooked. But all along, heaven was carving strength into your soul. Every scar has become scripture written on your skin, a testimony that cannot be erased. The enemy thought your pain would silence you, but it only made your voice sharper, clearer, and anointed. The time of unveiling has come. You are no longer just surviving, you are reigning. Not from pride, but from purpose. You walk with a stillness that commands attention, a peace that confuses fear. You are the warrior who has learned that victory is not in shouting, but in standing. As the Apostle Paul wrote in the second letter to Timothy, chapter 4, verse 7, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. You fought well. Every tear was part of the fight. Every quiet prayer a sword drawn in the spirit. Heaven saw it all. And now the crown fits perfectly, not because you sought it, but because you grew into it. Yet crowns are not given for decoration, they are for representation. You are called to carry light, to reflect the King's heart in a world that's forgotten what truth feels like. You are not just a believer, you are an ambassador of heaven's compassion. The way you love, forgive, and speak now carries royal authority. And as you stand in this new season, look around you. The battlefield has changed. The noise that once surrounded you has quieted because peace now reigns within you. But though the war has shifted, the mission remains to keep spreading the fire that healed you. When you click like, think of it not as a gesture of approval, but as lifting your sword to the sky, a signal that you stand among other warriors of light. It's a declaration that you still believe in hope, in goodness, in the sacred power of faith. When you share, you are not just forwarding words, you're sending out a flame. Somewhere, another warrior sits in the dark, waiting for a sign that they're not alone. Your simple act of sharing might become the torch that guides them home. When you subscribe, imagine it as entering a great hall of warriors, those who return again and again to be strengthened for the next battle. You're not following a page, you're joining a circle of light bearers, those who refuse to let the fire die. And if your heart ever feels stirred to give, to support this message, don't see it as donation, but as offering, a seed placed upon the altar of hope. Every gift becomes another beam of light sent into unseen corners. You are not paying for words. You are partnering with heaven's mission to reach hearts that feel unreachable. There is beauty in voluntary giving. It's not obligation, it's overflow. Just as rivers never force their water but still nourish the land, generosity flows naturally from grateful hearts. Every drop of kindness you release becomes a current of grace that carries restoration where despair once lived. And when you comment, let it be your banner. A single sentence can become a spark. Write from your heart a word of faith, a phrase of gratitude, even just "I rise." Each comment becomes a footprint of light across the battlefield of the internet, reminding others that faith still breathes here. Think of this community as a garden of fire. Each like is a spark, each share a spreading flame, each comment a flower blooming from ashes, and each gift a new branch of light reaching further into darkness. Together, we make beauty rise from what was broken. You've come too far to dim now. The crown you wear isn't heavy, it's holy, and it shines brightest when you lift others with your light. So if these words have touched you, let your action be worship like. Share, comment, subscribe, or sow into the soil of this mission, not out of pressure, but out of peace. Not because you must, but because love moves you to. Every gesture of support is a song of gratitude, a way of saying, I was found by light, and now I'll help it find another. And that, beloved warrior, is how the kingdom expands not through force, but through willing hearts. You have fought, you have endured, and now you rise not to boast, but to bless. You wear your crown quietly, knowing it was never about glory, but about grace. You were chosen not only to win battles, but to remind the world that love still conquers all. So stand tall, crowned one. Let your light be steady. Let your faith be fierce. And when you choose to act, to engage, to give, to connect, let it flow like prayer, freely and beautifully. For this is how warriors worship, by giving light back to the one who first ignited them. The light that cannot be hidden has begun to rise within you. What once flickered uncertainly in your chest now burns with steady purpose. It's not loud, not dramatic, just consistent, faithful, undeniable. The kind of light that doesn't need attention, because its very presence transforms everything it touches. You have become that light. For so long you questioned your worth, unsure if the small glow within you could make any real difference. Yet heaven always knew that light was powerful enough to disrupt darkness, even in its quietest form. God doesn't need a blaze to begin a revival. He only needs one unwavering flame, and that flame, chosen one, lives in you. The world has taught you to hide your brightness, to dim it to avoid judgment, to shrink it so others won't feel uncomfortable. But heaven did not invest its fire in you just to see it contained. You were never meant to blend into shadows. You were meant to stand as a beacon, a reminder that even the faintest glow can guide the lost home. The light you carry has been tested in storms. It did not come cheaply. You've endured seasons that tried to extinguish it: betrayal, heartbreak, exhaustion, silence. Yet every gust of wind only taught your flame how to bend without breaking. What you see now as resilience, heaven calls radiance. The glow that others admire is the strength you built when no one was watching. As the psalmist declared in the book of Psalms, chapter 27, verse 1, "The Lord is my light and my salvation, whom shall I fear? The Lord is the strength of my life, of whom shall I be afraid?" The world needs your light, not your perfection. It doesn't need you to have all the answers. It needs your authenticity, your warmth, your willingness to shine even when it's uncomfortable. Every scar, every lesson, every comeback releases light into dark spaces where hope once died. There's something sacred about quiet radiance. It doesn't compete, it completes. It doesn't shout for attention, it simply exists, and darkness cannot ignore it. When you walk into a room, peace follows. When you speak, hearts soften. When you stand in faith, atmospheres shift. That is not coincidence, that is calling. You may not always see the effect of your light, but heaven does. Someone breathes easier because you smiled when they were unseen. Someone finds courage because you kept standing when everything tried to break you. That's what real ministry looks like. It's not platform, it's presence. Light is most visible in darkness. That's why your journey took you through shadowed valleys, so that when you rose, your glow would carry credibility. People trust light that has been through fire, not light that has never faced the night. You are not fragile, you are refined. Still, the temptation remains to hide. There's comfort in smallness, in anonymity, in staying unseen. But hiding your light does not protect you, it withholds healing from others. When you shine, others find direction. Do not confuse humility with invisibility. True humility doesn't hide the gift, it honors the giver. Every time you let your light shine, you echo creation itself. When God said, "Let there be light," you've reached a point now where your light no longer depends on who affirms it. You shine because you were born to. Whether they see it or not, the light will remain. That's the kind of power heaven has placed inside you, unconditional brilliance. The more you shine, the more you'll draw opposition. Darkness resists exposure, but it can't overcome illumination. Every attack, every misunderstanding, every false accusation, they're not signs you're failing. They're proof you're glowing brighter. Let them come. Shadows can't exist without light, and their resistance only confirms your impact. There will be days when you grow tired of shining, when you wish you could rest in obscurity again. But you were not called to burn out. You were called to burn steadily. The flame of purpose doesn't consume, it purifies. To stay bright, you don't need to strive, you need to stay connected. So let your light flow freely. You are not the light's owner, you are its vessel, its guardian. As long as you stay open, heaven will keep filling you. You've come through the night, and morning has recognized you. What you carry now cannot be hidden or silenced. You are the light that darkness fears, the living proof that what God ignites can never be extinguished. Shine, chosen one. Not for recognition, but for redemption. The world needs to see what heaven has already crowned within you. And as your light continues to spread, remember its glow is eternal because its source is divine. You are not a temporary flame, you are a reflection of everlasting fire. The world may change, shadows may shift, but light never forgets how to shine. Walk boldly, chosen one. For every step you take leaves a trail of brilliance for others to follow toward hope, healing, and home. Heaven's silence feels different now. Once it frightened you. Now it steadies you. The stillness that used to feel like absence has become assurance, a sign that you've learned to walk by trust, not by constant confirmation. You no longer chase signs or demand answers. You've learned that the quiet is not empty. It's full of peace. This is maturity, the point where you realize God doesn't need to shout to be near. He doesn't prove himself through noise, but through nearness. You've discovered that the deeper your faith grows, the gentler his voice becomes. Because now, he doesn't need to convince you, he simply walks with you. The journey has changed you. What began in uncertainty now rests in unshakable calm. You've come through fire and found that peace isn't the absence of storms, but the presence of the one who commands them. Your heart no longer trembles at thunder. It listens for truth. As written in the book of Philippians, chapter 1, verse 6, being confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. This is the promise that holds you now. The work that began in pain will end in perfection. The same hands that carried you through chaos will crown you in completion. What felt endless was actually being woven into eternity. Every thread a testament of mercy, every scar a signature of grace. You used to think the goal was victory, but you've learned it was transformation all along. God wasn't trying to give you what you wanted. He was making you into who you were meant to be. The battle was never just about surviving, it was about becoming. Look around you. The world still spins in noise and distraction, yet you stand in quiet authority. That's what happens when storms fail to shake you. You become the calm in other people's chaos. Your peace has become a ministry, your endurance a lighthouse. You no longer need to explain your faith. You embody it. There were seasons you thought you were forgotten, but heaven was writing permanence while you waited. Every unanswered prayer was a seed. Every delay was protection disguised as denial. Now you understand nothing was wasted. Even your waiting was working. There's a sacred beauty in hindsight. The moments that once broke you now bless you. You see God's fingerprints on every closed door, every unexpected detour, every night you thought He had turned away. He was never absent. He was simply leading you through darkness by touch instead of sight. Your faith has become quiet but fierce. It no longer panics in silence, it breathes there. You've learned to see God not only in miracles but in the mundane, in sunrise, in laughter, in breath itself. What was once a cry of "Where are you?" has become a whisper of "I know you're here." You have reached the threshold of peace, the kind that no circumstance can steal. You've learned that surrender is not weakness, but strength refined by trust. You no longer fight for control because you've seen how perfectly God handles what you release. This is the rest of the chosen, not retreat, but rootedness. You've grown deep, like a tree that no longer fears the wind because it knows the strength of its foundation. The branches of your life now reach farther because your roots are anchored in something eternal. When others rush, you'll remain steady. When others fear, you'll remember faith. And when others falter, you'll remind them that God finishes what He starts. You are no longer merely walking in purpose, you have become it. Your life itself is the message now, and though this may feel like the end, it is only another beginning. The journey doesn't stop here, it evolves. The same God who led you through deserts will now lead you into gardens. The season of striving is over. The season of shining has begun. So stand in stillness, breathe deeply. Feel the quiet that once scared you now surround you with comfort. This is peace earned through perseverance, faith proven through fire, trust forged in truth. You are no longer a seeker, you are a steward. What God entrusted to you will multiply through your hands, through your presence, through your example. Others will find their way because you chose to stay faithful in the dark until dawn arrived. You have become living proof that faith works, that light wins, that God keeps His word. The work is not finished, but it is flourishing. The story continues, but now you walk it with confidence, not questions. Heaven smiles as you stand strong, whole, illuminated. The same grace that carried you in weakness now clothes you in wonder. The chosen one has become the vessel of completion. And as eternity watches, one truth remains unshaken: what God began in you, He will never abandon. The light He lit will not fade. The promise He spoke will not break. You are not at the end. You are at the beginning of forever. And now, chosen one, the journey comes full circle. You've heard every whisper, walked through every valley, and stood beneath heaven's fire. Yet here you are, stronger, gentler, clearer. This isn't an ending. It's a continuation of everything light has built within you. Before you go, pause and breathe. Let these words echo softly inside you. If this message has stirred something in your soul, if even one sentence found its way into a hidden corner of your heart, let your response be an act of light. When you click like, see it not as a button pressed, but as a candle lit. One small flame, offered freely, joining thousands of others until the night itself begins to glow. It's a way of saying, I'm still here, still believing. When you share, imagine you are opening a window in a dark house. Somewhere out there, someone you'll never meet is waiting for a breath of fresh hope. Your simple share might be the breeze that revives their spirit. When you comment, let it be more than text, let it be testimony. Write a word of peace, a phrase of gratitude, a simple, I rise again. These comments are footprints of light left for others to follow when their faith falters. When you subscribe, you're not just following, you're coming home. You're joining a gathering of hearts who have decided that darkness will never have the last word. Every time you return, heaven meets you here again. And if your heart feels moved to give, let it be like releasing a seed into rich soil. You're not paying for words, you're planting for generations. Every offering, small or great, becomes part of this flame that continues to travel across hearts and continents. Nothing here is demanded. Everything is invitation. The beauty of light is that it always chooses to shine. So walk forward carrying what you've received. Let your heart remain open, your fire steady, your faith alive. Like share, comment, subscribe, give if you feel led, but above all, keep glowing. Because your light, beloved, is part of something eternal now.